Welcome to Chat Cafe. Today we are talking about adoption. We are exploring the ins and outs of adoption. So, how is it done in Ghana? What are the processes involved? What are the requirements you will need? And who are the agencies accredited to provide such services? If you are considering the option or are simply here to learn, then stick and stay with us. Welcome back. Today we have with us a professional, if I should call her that. She has been in the field for so many years and she's been practicing as an advocate too. She goes by the name Deborah Na Akushika Saka. So welcome, Akushika. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Let's just delve deep into the question.
Right.
So if we say adoption, what is it all about? And what are your experiences in the field of adoption? I mean, with your work and all that.
Thank you for having me here.
Welcome.
When we say adoption, basically what we're talking about is somebody or a couple deciding to bring a child that was not born of them, was not naturally born of them, into their home to legally take as their child and take care of, provide care in all aspects, financial, psychological, physical, every aspect of care that can be given to a child.
So you've been running this organization, the Minsheh organization, for a long time. Tell us about your experiences starting and what even brought about the idea of you setting up the company or the agency.
Right. I've been running Minsheh for quite some time. I studied social work in the University of Ghana, and upon completion I started to work with a law firm, Roman Levy and Associates. In the course of the legal work, assisting, I was the practice manager, so I was managing the firm and the lawyers when they're going to court, their processes and all that. And in the course of it, we had a few clients that came in and wanted to adopt children but didn't know where to go or how to go about it. And when we talk about adoption, usually there's a whole process that takes place before the legal aspect comes in. So at some point, the firm seemed a little handicapped as to how to assist them because they hadn't done, nothing had been done, and so lawyers can't just zoom in and say, we're going to get you an adoption certificate. And so with my background in social work, my boss at the time thought, you've studied something in this field, do what more research you need, let's see how best we can help our clients.
Who qualifies to adopt, and then the criteria and then the requirements that are needed for you to be able to adopt?
Right. I tell you who qualifies to adopt, and I tell you who is eligible to be adopted. Usually in Ghana, a single male cannot adopt.
Cannot adopt?
Yes, and I like to start from there. A single male cannot adopt.
Single meaning that someone who is unmarried.
Who is unmarried.
So if the person even has a girlfriend or partner, you can't.
You can't adopt.
Why?
You can't.
Why?
You can't ask the system, and I say the system, the institutions that are responsible for it to match you with a child. No. We'll get to the why.
Yes, I really want to know why.
A single female can adopt, and a married couple can also adopt. To adopt, you have to be at least 21 years older than the child you want to adopt.
Oh, okay.
And you have to be at least 25 years
of age. Okay.
You have to be at least 25 years. And you have to be 21 years older than the child you want to adopt. Also, you cannot adopt if you are more than 55 years. So the cutoff age for adoption is 55.
55. What about the couple? If one is 50, let's say one is more than and the other is
yes,
less.
at least one of them has to be below the age of 55.
Okay.
So one can be maybe 60, but if the female 40, is about 40 thereabouts, sure. Then at least one of the parents has to be below the age of 55.
Okay.
I'm sure we'll get to the types of adoption, but these requirements vary. So if it's a non-relative, then what I've just said applies. When it's a relative adoption, then the person that wants to adopt, if it's a single male or single female or a couple, you have to be at least 21 years.
Okay.
For a relative adoption, for the non-relative, like I said, it's 25, and you have to be 21 years older than the child. But for a relative adoption, you have to be at least 21 years. And then also, the cut-off age for relative is 60 years.
Okay. What about if you are 21? How old should the child be before?
So for that, there's no
criteria.
Yeah, there's no limit. Okay. For the relative for the non-relative, you have to be 21 years older than the child. But for relative adoption, once you're 21 years and you're adopting your relative, it's allowed.
Okay, but aside the age differences and all that, do you look at finance? Do you look at emotional maturity?
Yes.
And all these factors.
Usually, when we are sure that you meet these criteria that I've mentioned, there are certain documents that we require from you. And those documents are to enable us determine the type of person you are and your capabilities financially. So we'll have your financial documents, your statement of account or your bank slip, your pay slip, those things. We also have character references from people around to determine that you're a socially responsible person to be able to adopt and take care of a child. We also conduct what we call the home study report.
Okay.
And that's a comprehensive report on your person, your home, how you relate to people around you, what you do, what your day-to-day looks like, is to determine that your life is one that can accommodate a child and you will actually be able to take care of the child and give the child all the attention and the care that they require.
So basically you should be a responsible person.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. What about your mental health? Do you diagnose the person, or do you require some doctor's report to ascertain that the person has the right frame of mind to, take care of such children?
Usually there's an application form where you pick up, and then it has all of those documents that I've mentioned. There's also a medical form in there.
Okay.
So you have to actually go to your doctor and be medically tested. So they check everything, including mental health as well. Clinically, they check that. This is specific to Minsheh. Usually we have counselors that will also go through some form of a counseling with adoptive parents or applicants to be sure that they're ready for the step that they're going to take.
Okay. So to the types of adoption, I know there are types. Can you walk us through the types in Ghana? The types of, in Ghana.
So here we have, generally, globally, there are two types of adoption.
Okay.
Relative adoption, non-relative adoption. That's the kinship or non-kinship adoption globally. And then there's the inter-country and the in-country. So you can have inter-country relative adoption, inter-country non-relative adoption. You can have in-country relative or in-country non-relative. For inter-country relative, that's basically someone that lives outside of Ghana that wants to adopt someone that's their relative. Or someone that usually it's relative or a close family friend. Sometimes you have someone that you've lived with for so long. Maybe their children have taken care of, they've taken care of your parents and then they've had children. Those ones are more or less family. So there's for relative inter-country, that's somebody that's out of the jurisdiction that wants to adopt a relative from here. So that one, they don't have to be matched by the state. And that one, they don't, the parent doesn't have to necessarily relinquish them or give them up to the state for the state to find somebody to give to the child to adopt. It's usually within the family. Okay. So you can determine the child and say that I want to adopt this relative of mine, my cousin's child or my brother's child, and then you lay down the circumstances leading to your wanting to adopt that child. The non-relative, of course, is where someone out of the jurisdiction wants to adopt a child from here that they want the system, the state, or the central adoption authority to match them to. So they put in the application, the home study reports and everything, and then we submit the application to the central adoption authority. In that application, they would have stated preferences of the child they want. So then the technical committee is looking at the preferences that have been stated against the adoptable children's list that they have to match that person with a child. Same thing when it comes to the in-country, where relative, in-country relative, you're here in Ghana, you want to adopt a relative of yours, you go through the process, or you want the state to match you with a child, there's that process that you go through as well. For the adoption process itself, when
that was the next question I nearly came to.
Well,
since you're answering it.
So for the process itself, let's take the relative adoption. Usually, the applicant, if it's inter-country, then they would have to engage an agency, an adoption agency in the country where they are.
Okay.
They engage that agency and just make sure that that agency is eligible to work in Ghana, which means that they have a partner agency here in Ghana they can work with. They've been authorized to do adoptions in Ghana. Now, whether relative, whether non-relative, what an adoption seeks to, the main objective of adoption is to ensure that it is in the best interest of a child.
Okay.
The best interest of a child is ultimate in every adoption process.
Okay.
So, and when we say interest of a child, it's in all dimensions. A child can be in a home where finances are okay and everything, but they are not okay.
Sure.
Because maybe the parent is not sound and is not able to take care of them the way a child needs to be taken care of.
They don't even have the time to.
Exactly. They don't have the interest. Someone just says, look, I'm done with this. Someone has lost their spouse and they are not able to come back to that mental state where they're able to properly take care of a child. So it's just make sure there's money there, they can go to school, pay their fees, whatever is going on with their child. So what the system is all about is to ensure that holistically the adoption process is in the interest of the child.
So if a child is adopted from one country to the next, does your agency handle their visas or their permanent residency, or that isn't something that you do?
I would say yes and no. Yes and no, because as part of the process, when they have gone through, like I said, we put all of these documents together, we submit it to the Central Adoption Authority, and clearance is given. So once clearance is given, what happens is usually you should go to court and then obtain the adoption order. But in some countries, they would ask that the clearance is sent back to the agency in the other country for their government or the Central Adoption Authority there to endorse it, sort of, and then the embassy here in Ghana is alerted on the process that has taken place and where it's gotten to, so that now the embassy, what the embassy will do is to issue some form of a report that says that, okay, we've seen that you're going through this process, we have gone through your documents, we will go and complete the process in court and come to us for the visa. We'll issue the visa once you go through, you complete the process in the country. So in that vein, we'll wait for that report or that document to come before we proceed to court, knowing that once we're done in court, all they have to do is to get an interview date, because usually they go for the interview so that the consular officers can sort of visualize. I mean, they've had documents, but they can see that, okay, this is the person, this is the child, and then issue that child a visa. When that child is issued a visa and they travel, then they complete the immigration process there, and then the child becomes a full-blown citizen in that country.
So I'm hearing you say child. Does it mean that someone who is above 18 cannot be adopted?
Absolutely.
They cannot be adopted?
Absolutely. Anybody that is above the age of 18 cannot be adopted. Usually, a child is anybody that is below the age of 18.
Yeah.
But because of the adoption process and the timelines within which the whole process goes through, usually if the child is 17, we won't even go through the process, because by the time we're done with the process, they're 18.
Yes.
And they can take a decision for themselves.
How does your agency match the children with the parents? Is there a mechanism you use?
Okay, so that brings me to non-relative adoption application process. We go through the same process as I mentioned with the relative, except that this time no child has been identified, because an individual cannot see a child and say, you can't go to an orphanage and say that, oh, I've seen this child, I'm going to adopt this child. In Ghana, it doesn't happen. You don't identify a child and say you're adopting that child. You put in an application at the Central Adoption Authority, give the preferences that you want of the child that you're looking for. And the preferences vary. You can decide the age, the sex, you can decide on the skin color of the child, right up to what
the height, everything.
All of that. You can decide all of those things. And then once your preference is stated there, there's an adoptable list, adoptable children's list, which means that not all children that are in the residential homes or orphanages are adoptable. Not all the children there can be adopted. Some of them are there for various reasons and they are not adoptable children. So once there's a child that matches your preference on the adoptable children's list, a proposal is made to the applicant through our agency. If we put in the application, then a proposal is made. So you, in that proposal, there's the medical report on the child, the background of the child, all of that information is there for the applicant to assess and see if this child is one that they would want in their homes.
So do you give them a list of children with their pictures to select, or just one?
No.
person?
So we don't.
Okay.
In all of this, you see, we submit the application to the Central Adoption Authority. It is only the Central Adoption Authority that can match a child to an applicant. So for us, once we submit it, we wait for that proposal. We are not in control of what child you are matched with. Ours is to get the proposal, get it to the client, to the applicant, for them to assess. If they're okay with it, then we go on to request that the child is placed with them for the bonding period. And if they are not, then we take it back, and then another proposal is made if that child is on the list. If the child isn't, then they have to wait until a child of their preference becomes available and adoptable. Then that process begins again. Okay,
so how long does it take for a typical adoption process to conclude?
For a non-relative application process, usually I would say about 12 months.
Wow.
Ideally, if everything is okay and it is an in-country process, it should be between 6 months.
Okay.
Within 6 months.
Okay.
But if it's an inter-country, then of course there are two countries
involved.
Comparing notes, let me say. So we make that
process
flexibility so that that allowance is there. So about 12 months. But for a relative adoption, we're looking at about 6 months.
Okay. So tell me some of the misconceptions people have about adoption.
The misconceptions, there are plenty. People that have the interest in adopting think that they can walk into a place
or a children's home,
a residential home, and see a child, think that, okay, this is one that I want to adopt, and so can begin the process of adoption. Some don't even know there's a process of adoption. And if you're not careful, that is where the illegalities begin, because then you talk to some official that is in that home and they say, oh, bring this amount of money, I can get you this child. And sometimes, because the children are in their care, they are able to get them out of the system. But then the Central Adoption Authority, through the Department of Social Welfare, now they keep a very tight, keen eyes on the children that are there. So if one that's supposed to be on the list or is on the list cannot be found, then it's a problem. So then you would have taken that child, had that child in your home for some time, and next thing you know, there are issues.
They will come for the child.
There are also those that think that adoption is a no-no for me because these children are evil, they have all sorts of backgrounds and things, but it's actually not so. They are all vulnerable children that find themselves in a situation that is less than ideal. And sometimes when you have a lot of children in one place, everybody coming in with some behavior that's been picked up, or growing up among children that have picked up all sorts of behaviors, of course, they tend to emulate those behaviors. And so these children find themselves in a place where all they know is what they have been able to pick up from other people. So when you come in and adopt the child, then you're able to sort of wean them off those behaviors and then mold them into, because of your discipline style and all of those things. And then with love, you're able to ensure that you nurture an upstanding citizen.
Would you advise someone to adopt a child that is very, very young, because of what you just spoke about? Because at that age, they are able to pick up certain things. So when you adopt them at that particular age, it's easier for you to nurture them or mold them into what you want them to be, rather than the older ones.
I understand what you're saying, but you see, children are children. Yes, the older they get, the more behaviors they pick up, and the more those behaviors become their habits, and it becomes difficult to correct those behaviors. But it's difficult, not impossible. And if you're looking for easy, then maybe don't consider adoption. If you're looking for the easiest way about it, then you may be on an adoption list for a very long time to adopt a baby, because those ones, they are fresh.
Sure.
So it's not difficult to nurture them into. But a lot of impact is made when you adopt a child that's been in the system. And an 8-year-old child, certain behaviors have been formed, but all they need to be able to let go of the negatives is to know that they're loved and they're chosen. And that sense of belonging, it does something to a child. So if you're able to bring that child, so I don't advise that you adopt a child that is so young, and the so young are there, the older ones are there. Adopt which one you feel you'll be able to make the most impact on, whose lives you can make the most impact.
Is there an instance where someone adopts a child and then later you take the child back from the person? And what are some of the post-adoption services that you offer?
For the first part of your question, are there times or are there instances where an adoption is sort of reversed or the child is taken back? There are instances where the whole process is not necessarily reversed, but the child is taken back. Because you see, like I said in the beginning, every adoption has to be in the best interest of the child. So if we come in to do post-adoption reports and we find that the child is not in that
good state
situation, that the circumstance we find the child in is not one that any child should be in, then of course we want to take the child away from you. Even if you have legitimately adopted them, legally adopted them, there are steps that we have to go through. It's not one that we just come in and take the child and but we have to go through the steps to go back to court and let the court understand that where this child is, the treatment that is being meted out to this child is just not the one that you thought you were placing the child in. And so we think that the whole process should be rescinded. The second part of your question,
the post-adoption services.
So,
and how long is it that you complete all the process? The post-adoption process is what I'm talking about. After the child is 18 years and above, because that you know that the person is not a child anymore, so you can
usually
stop.
Yes, usually depending on what age the child is taken up, the post-adoption report we're supposed to do every month to a point where the child is about 14, and then we do every 6 months until the child is 18.
Yeah.
So we go in every time to see what's going on with the child. Sometimes every 3 months we take a report to see what's going on with the child, how the child is coping in the family, how the family is coping with the child, what assistances could be given to that child or that family to better take care of the child, all of those things.
Do you have any training or counseling session to train the adoptive parents before they adopt the children, emotionally, psychologically, for them to be able to, properly be responsible for these children?
Yes. So from the Central Adoption Authority, we're mandated to take every adoption applicant through a 30-hour training process.
Okay.
That one we cannot compromise on. But at Minsheh, in inclusion to that 30 hours training process, we have counselors, like I mentioned earlier on, who work with adoption applicants, and sometimes even post-adoption adoptive families. We want to come in and see how they're doing, and if there are issues, we refer them to counselors to work with the family. Sometimes there are sibling children who are adamant and do not they feel that the adoptive child is taking more
privileges
over them, and so those are things that we come in oftentimes when we know of those situations. We try to come in and help.
So in monetary terms, if someone wants to adopt, how much should the person be looking at?
Adoption is not one that I can place figures on so much, because it's every family or every applicant has their own issues, or the application process can take a turn, so normally we don't even know what the figures are until you have come in. We sit with you, try to understand where you're coming from, your plans are, the reasons why you're going through the application process, and then we know what we will be doing with you or for you, what work we'll be doing, and then we determine how much. But when it comes to the Central Adoption Authority, those are statutory fees.
Let's treat the why males are not allowed to adopt, because for all you know, a male can be very, very capable of taking care of the child more than the female.
Right. For a very long time. But dating back to when some of these regulations were put in place, traditionally we know that women are more nurturing, so the system feels more comfortable giving up a child to a woman, to a female. They know that this person naturally she has the nurturing instincts, and normally it's much easier to trust a child with a female than, because you know that for a female they can maybe make some allowances in their lives to be able to accommodate the child, whereas the male, they're looking first and foremost at all the responsibilities they have to cover financially and in all other aspects before they look at their child. And the system believes that where a child will play second fiddle for a male, the female would put them at the foremost.
What is the advice you would want to give to individuals or couples who are considering adopting?
My advice is actually that once you have thought about it and considered it, it means that you have space in your heart and in your home for a child. Don't drop that consideration or that thought. Actually go through the process. It's not as cumbersome or as lengthy. One of the misconceptions is that it's a lengthy process. It's cumbersome. It's not as cumbersome. And there are agencies like Minsheh that are there to actually facilitate the process so that it's a lot more stress-free to you. But we also know that nothing good comes easy, and bringing any child into your home to nurture the child, it's a two-way street. You find yourself fulfilled, and you would have also helped a child gain love and care that they would otherwise not find. So it's a wonderful thing that you've even thought about it. Don't drop it. Actually, come to Minsheh. We'll help you through the process. It'll be stress-free for you, and also for your pockets in a lot of ways.
Okay, so if anyone wants to contact you, how do they contact you?
Minsheh Child and Family Welfare Services is located in Kanda. We're on the Aboso Street, just around Kanda Club 10. And we can be found on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. Contact numbers, is it okay to give? Yes, so 0551 546400. You can follow us, leave a message, leave a contact at Minsheh Child and Family Welfare Services, or Minsheh CFWS. This is on Facebook and on Instagram as well.
Okay, so this is where we call it a wrap. It's been an insightful discussion. I really enjoyed it. Until we catch you next time, it's bye-bye for now.